You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday 16th of May 2014. Blackburn pervert jailed for abducting girls and sexually assaulting one of them. Channel 4 documentary to look at polygamy among British Muslims. Ovary removal, Queen's Hospital doctor found guilty of misconduct but keeps job. Halal meat row, ministers will consider labelling if there is widespread demand and EU does same. Roma get payout over max discrimination. Sudan judge says pregnant Christian woman to hang for apostasy. Thought for the day, halal and the truth. And finally, 2 for 1 day, Friday. UK News. Blackburn pervert jailed for abducting girls and sexually assaulting one of them. A predatory man has been jailed for abducting 2 teenage girls and sexually assaulting one of them. There were dramatic scenes in court as the father of one of the victims stood up during the hearing and shouted, "He has destroyed my family." A judge heard how Zayed Mohammed, aged 44, planned to force himself on the 14-year-old after he and Imran Khan spotted the 2 youngsters walking late at night in Blackburn. After picking them up in his silver Honda, the girls were taken back to Mohammed's house in Chester Street, where Khan raped the other girl, who was 15. The pair asked how old the girls were and if they were virgins. Ken Hine, defending, admitted it was not the first time Mohammed had been involved in an abduction. He told the court that in 1983, when the defendant was 15, he was part of a gang that took a girl from a house she was staying in Blackburn before she was eventually taken on to Birmingham by others. Mohammed was found guilty of 2 counts of detaining a child and a further 2 of sexual activity with a female child under 16. Sentencing Mohammed to 3.5 years in prison, the judge told him the circumstances of the victim's abduction and sexual assault represent sexual exploitation by older men. Imran Khan, 36 of Tenby Close, Blackburn, was also found guilty of 2 charges of detaining a child and 1 of rape. He will be sentenced on June the 20th to allow for the preparation of a medical report. World at 8. Medical report? Are they going to suggest he's either oversexed, balmy and a victim of the Muslim culture? The usual sentences for the usual crimes. Deportation not amongst it, I note. Or compensation to the victims' families for loss of virginity. If our laws hit these bastards where they hurt financially, these crimes would soon stop. Channel 4 documentary to look at polygamy among British Muslims. The Men with Many Wives hits our screens later this summer as it examines those wanting more than one husband or wife. Channel 4 is set to air a documentary looking at polygamous marriages among British Muslims. The Men with Many Wives will give an insight into why 20,000 of these marriages exist despite it being illegal in the UK. It's said the programme will delve into difficult issues surrounding love and balancing Muslim values within British society. World at 8, they are not British, they are Muslims, and we are already paying for their many wives, both in benefits and health and education of their many offspring. What more do they want? Acceptance? Ovary removal, Queen's Hospital doctor found guilty of misconduct, but keeps job. Dr Yahya Al-Abed admitted during a tribunal that he was out of his depth when he performed the complicated operation on Maria de Jesus, 32, on October 23, 2011. The mother of 3, who was 21 weeks pregnant, died 19 days later after suffering a miscarriage and undergoing a second procedure to remove her appendix. Dr Al-Abed admitted making a number of errors during the procedure, including removing her right ovary instead of her appendix. Al-Abed even allowed off-duty second-year trainee Osman Chowdhury to make the first incision after he asked to help, despite his inexperience. Senior consultant surgeon Babatunde Julian Coker should have performed the procedure himself, or at least supervised the registrar, but instead went home as Mrs de Jesus lost 1,200 millilitres of blood. Both doctors were found guilty of serious misconduct on Monday at the Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service in Manchester. Al-Abed, now working at Colchester Hospital, was also told his errors during the operation were avoidable and had he followed procedures or stopped or waited for the consultant's support. Recording a narrative verdict in an inquest on Walthamstow, East London, Coroner Chinyere Inyama said a lost window of opportunity could have saved Mrs de Jesus. Barking, Havering and Redbridge Hospital Trust admitted liability for her death and apologised to her family. Coker was found to have failed in his duty of care to his patient when he effectively delegated responsibility to a trainee whose capabilities he was not familiar with. The doctor who mistakenly removed the pregnant woman's healthy ovary instead of appendix before she died will keep his job. World at 8. Disgraceful, a multi-ethnic cock-up and cover-up. Deport both and all their families, or better still, sue for malpractice and get thousands of pounds from them both. Legal aid should cover the widower or next of kin, shouldn't it? UK. Halal meat row. Ministers will consider labelling if there is a widespread demand, and EU does same. Ministers say they will consider compulsory labelling for halal meat if there is widespread demand and it is done across Europe. Compulsory labelling of halal meat could be supported by the government if it is enforced by the European Union, a minister has said. Jenny Willott, a Liberal Democrat minister, said the government will consider introducing a ban if a European study finds there is a widespread demand from customers. World at 8. Labelling. What good does that do? Stop it all forthwith and risk annoying the Muslim community, I say. About time they were annoyed thoroughly, isn't it? European news. Roma get payout over Max discrimination. Max is Sweden's homegrown fast food chain. On the 1st of May, a worker at the branch of Max in Kista, North Stockholm, told a man and his 2 sons that the restaurant does not serve Roma. Now, after a meeting, the 3 men are very happy, says a witness to newspaper Metro. Thomas Karamfilis was president when the 3 men were refused service and has acted as a contact for them since he speaks the same language. He was present at a meeting on Monday where representatives for Max met the 3 Roma who suffered discrimination. Max apologised and said the restaurant doesn't agree with what the employee said. They promised it would never happen again, said Thomas Karamfilis. He says the 3 men were given envelopes with SEK 20,000 each and were very happy, otherwise they collect cans, and 20,000 is as much as they make in a year. That is about £1,800. He says the 3 men had come to work in Sweden during the summer, but now the father and 1 son have gone back to Romania. A representative for Max will not say to Metro whether or not the employee who refused the 3 men's service is still employed. World at 8. You bet he isn't. No wonder they've gone home. What a scam. Trading the good old race card and discrimination. What a band of patsies these Swedes are. Money for jam, innit? World news. Sudan judge says pregnant Christian woman to hang for apostasy. A Sudanese judge yesterday sentenced a Christian woman to hang for apostasy, a ruling which Britain denounced as barbaric. Born to a Muslim father, the woman was convicted under the Islamic Sharia law that has been in force in Sudan since 1983 and outlaws conversions on pain of death. Maryam Yahya Ibrahim Ishtag, 27, is married to a Christian and 8 months pregnant, human rights activists say. We gave you 3 days to recant, but you insist on not returning to Islam. I sentence you to be hanged, Judge Abbas Mohammed al-Khalifa told the woman, addressing her by her father's Muslim name, Adraf al-Hadi Mohammed Abdullah. Khalifa also sentenced Ishtag to 100 lashes for adultery. Under Sudan's interpretation of Sharia, a Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man, and any such relationship is regarded as adulterous. Britain's Minister for Africa, Mark Simmons, said he was truly appalled at the death penalty decision. Earlier in the hearing, an Islamic religious leader spoke with her in the cage dock for about 30 minutes, trying to convince her to change her mind. But she calmly told the judge, I'm a Christian and I never committed apostasy. Sudan has an Islamist government, but, other than floggings, extreme Sharia law punishments have been rare. World at 8. Well, now even the most liberal amongst us can see where the future is going. Where is the love and multi-religious acceptance of Islam? Just where it has always been and will be. Nowhere in the Quran, matey. Thought for the day: Halal and the truth. Before I go down the halal road, I received an answer to an email I sent to the Compassion in World Farming people, and received this very nice, very PC and very mustn't upset the Muslim community's reply, which I shall read. Quote, Hi Lynn. Thank you for your email regarding non-stun slaughter. I hope today I can provide you with some more information on the subject. Compassion in World Farming campaigns to improve the welfare of all farm animals, and we believe that humane slaughter is a key part of delivering a better life to a farm animal. Humane slaughter means death without suffering. This is possible if 1. The slaughter method kills the animal instantly, e.g. with some electric stun kill methods. 2. The animal is rendered instantly insensible to pain before slaughter by being stunned and remains entirely unconscious until death. 3. The slaughter method is non-aversive and does not cause pain or distress, e.g. with some inert gas killing methods. Compassion in World Farming believes the only slaughter methods that entirely meet one of the above sets of criteria should be permitted. EU law allows animals to be slaughtered without being stunned for the food of religious groups such as Muslims and Jews. We believe the welfare of the animals should come first and the animals should be stunned. Several Muslim groups accept pre-slaughter stunning as long as the stun does not kill the animal before its throat is cut. The majority of halal slaughter in the UK is done with stunning and is therefore absolutely legal for sale to anyone. Figures from the Food Standards Agency show that actually 88% of British halal meat has been pre-stunned before slaughter. This is allowed as electrical stunning of the animal does not cause injury. Kosher slaughter in the UK is a little different and only 10% of cattle is post-cut stunned during slaughter. Currently there is no requirement to label unstunned or halal or kosher meat, and here at Compassion we strongly believe that meat from unstunned animals should be labelled as such. Scientific reports have also found that there is no difference in the rate of bleeding out between a stunned and non-stunned animal at slaughter. It is a myth that an animal needs a beating heart to pump out the blood quicker, and that is also another reason that supports our work to have all animals 100% stunned before slaughter. Humane systems on their own cannot ensure humane slaughter. Compassion in World Farming also campaigns for better enforcement and regulation around slaughter. We do, for example, believe that the introduction of CCTV could go a long way in promoting good practice in slaughterhouses. Good luck with that. However, Compassion is not a regulatory organisation. We cannot therefore guarantee any meat supply in the respect of humane slaughter and welfare. However, if you're purchasing your meat from major supermarkets, then the strong likelihood is that it will be from stunned animals, with the exception of independent halal butchers operating within some supermarkets. Because certified meat, including halal meat, in the case of Red Tractor, RSPCA Freedom Food and Soil Association Organic, will have been stunned. Waitrose and Marks & Spencer's do not tend to use these labels for their own brand meat. However, both of these supermarkets have assured us that all own brand meat entering their supply chain is from pre-stunned animals. Our food business team here at Compassion works closely with major retailers in the UK and overseas to encourage them to improve the welfare standards of animals entering their supply chain, including welfare at slaughter. Following this engagement, a number of supermarkets have now committed to using CCTV in their slaughterhouses, which we see as a significant step in helping to improve the welfare of animals at slaughter. Compassion has also been working with leading animal welfare academics in the Islamic community regarding the slaughter of animals for halal meat. Compassion in World Farming organised a meeting with the Islamic Foundation in July 2007, oh dear, some time ago, bringing together leading animal welfare academics, or they must be a lot. Real progress was made at this event. A further meeting with the Islamic Foundation was held in 2008. Dr. Abdul Rahman, a Muslim and leading animal welfarist from India, in favour of pre-slaughter stunning, was in attendance. 20 years ago, Compassion in World Farming published Animals in Islam, which was written by a learned Muslim, Dr. Masri, who recommended the stunning of animals before slaughter. So I would gather that there's nothing since. Now back to reality. This idealistic display of stupidness has been arranged with the general retail communities and the Islamic communities, and the result is above for all to see. A blanket of partial lies, which are the cleverest forms of lies, because there could be, maybe, some truth in there somewhere, but I find it hard, having researched these killings for the party conference 3 years ago, when banning halal and kosher killings in the UK was passed into our BNP manifesto. On that occasion I had a very in-depth conversation with a gentleman from the Jewish Chronicle, and he stated that no kosher killings are stunned, Not even 10%. This one difference between kosher and halal is that the animals are taken singly into a room. The butcher, who has 7 years training to do this, unlike halal, which can be and is done by anyone of the Muslim religion, says a prayer and the animal is laid down and its throat cut. It lies there with the butcher until dead and is then hung up. The Jews were performing this sort of killing hundreds of years before anyone had ever heard of Muhammad, and came from the wandering desert tribes who had to conserve meat, and meat with blood doesn't last as long in the desert heat. It is as simple as that. They are dietary laws for the Jewish people, and true, they are outdated now that Israel has fridges and they are no longer wandering the earth but have settled practically everywhere else that also has refrigeration. This is why pork is forbidden. It is the nearest thing to human flesh and corrupts just as fast, similar to shellfish and certain other meats. But all this halal business is revolving around the fact that we have millions of Muslims in this country and indeed Europe, and although the rumblings are fast growing about the dissatisfaction amongst the white Christians and others about the very nasty procedures our animals are having to undergo to satisfy a different creed and culture, you can see it is all being handled in much the same way as the Muslim sexual grooming scandals. That is not really covered, and when it is, it's covered in pink fluffy mistruths to allay and confuse the majority of the sheeples. There are several blatant paragraphs in that reply which need to be sorted. Firstly, all halal killings are unstunned, or else it would not fulfil the right of halal under Islamic law. Secondly, the animals are hung before having their throats cut. Thirdly, these killings are carried out en masse in any room at any time and place. Fourthly, it is a medical fact that blood flows quicker when the heart is still beating. You don't have to be a medical student or a qualified butcher to know that the more frightened and in pain the animal is, the quicker the blood flow. And 5, I distrust anything that smacks of liaison between retailers, Muslims and compassion in farming. It is all too beautiful and too nice to be real, and if you really believe all that meat sold in M&S and Waitrose is from stunned meat, then bully for you, excuse the phrase. We have to get real in this country. Halal has overtaken the greedy supermarkets because, despite its awful history, the meat is supposed to have a longer shelf life. Whether that is labelled or unlabelled makes no difference to me. It should all be banned in this country. We have little qualms in the UK about offending the Jewish population, about opinions on kashrut laws, but when it comes to the Muslims, we are pity-pattying about making up things which do not exist. How many Christian politicians, retailers or sympathy groups have actually gone unannounced to a halal killing house? If it is anything like the nursing home inspectors, restaurant and takeaway inspectors, hospital inspectors or similar, it is a 3-week notice job to be over as soon as. The Muslims are fighting back, and in an article written by Nasreen Malik in the Guardian paper, that bastion of Islam, on May the 12th, she's come up with the new cherry that a large percentage of so-called halal meat is pre-stunned. This official line has been adopted by the media large scale to avoid intensifying racial prejudices, and it ain't working with me, matey. Where she does let the cat out of the bag is where she wonders why a nation who have been guzzling down kebabs and all sorts of ghastly halal curries and ready meals for at least 2 generations, or rather in the last 40 years since the buggers settled here, are suddenly wondering about where this meat comes from and how it is produced. She is, of course, quite right in this, and this only respect. We are, and always have been, a greedy and ignorant people over food, especially since the last war when many people went hungry for the first time in their lives. Never to be forgotten, apparently. Out of all of Europe, the British spend the least money on quality foods and the most on crap, both foreign and domestic. And this is some of Nasreen's story. The random Muslim scare story generator, separating fact from fiction. Halal meat is on every menu, Sharia law is taking over, the niqab is undermining the nation. Ever noticed how often the same old stories keep appearing about Muslims in Britain? Here's the truth about these and other media myths. The supposed objection is that halal slaughter is a less humane method of terminating an animal than the supposedly more palatable methods of stunning, electrocution and gassing. But according to a 212 Food Standards Agency report cited by the RSPCA and Compassion in World Farming, I might add, 97% of cattle, 96% of poultry and 90% of sheep slaughtered using the halal method in UK abattoirs are stunned first, desensitising the animal into pain. If the objection were really about the distress of slaughter, it would therefore apply to only a tiny proportion of halal meat. The most recycled of stories, the halal debate, began in earnest in 2003 with a Farm Animal Welfare Council report that recommended stunning for halal and kosher slaughter. Since then, every time the issue of religiously compliant slaughter has been resurrected, the kosher element has been less and less prominent, rendering it less an animal rights issue and more an irrational rejection of halal slaughter as something tainted with something intangibly Muslim. In a nation that has been enjoying halal meat for years in curries, kebabs and shawarmas, what the hell's that? The halal debate has distorted and hijacked the welfare dimensions in order to channel nasty resentment that a minority you don't like is being accommodated. Well, she's true there. She's right there. However, on the BBC, a Muslim came out with the truth. If it is stunned pre-cut, it isn't halal. Let's be clear, this whole debate has been adopted by the huge retailers so that their profits don't suffer, and started with the labelling of possible halal meat in their stores. The actual methodology of halal slaughter has been repeatedly ditched, as we in the British National Party have brought this to the public's attention some years ago. So this is the new news on halal. Most of it is stunned and must be labelled, and this, they think, will satisfy a grumbling few and secure retail figures for the future. And the sad thing about it is that it most probably will. And that is a win-win for Islam, Judaism, food retailers, cheap foreign-run restaurants and takeaways in the UK. But it ain't a winner for the animals or the few people that actually care what they eat. The media once again have intimated that this subject has been hijacked by anti-Muslim and anti-Jewish brigades, when in fact it has not. Our Jews have been with us for many, many years, and no one has brought up the subject of kosher killing solely. The reason for this is that the Jews do not spread their culture throughout the country. Our children do not have to eat kosher killed meat in schools. Our armed forces do not either. Vast new tendrils of takeaway outlets do not have kosher. Kosher has not been the subject of infiltration into the food supply chain of the UK or indeed Europe. Jewish people keep to themselves. They do not convert, neither do they press their food preferences on entire populations, unwanted and unasked for. However, Islam does just that, and more, and feels no pain in doing so. It is the will of Allah that all of the UK shall eat cruelly obtained meat and also feel no pain. All the debates, agreements, reports, investigations and committees supposedly liaising with each other is just so much flummery to misguide and mislead the basic fact. Halal killing especially is foreign to us and alien to our culture and our religion. It must be banned. Muslims can import halal meat if they want. Look to New Zealand, which has all of its lamb killed this way because it's off the beaten track for European trade thanks to the EU and has to make money from the Far East and Arabs. We, however, don't. The final word in hypocrisy comes from Compassion in World Farming, looking to its following. Philip Lymbery, Chief Executive of Compassion in World Farming, said the UK should ban the slaughter of animals which have not been stunned. But he added, "I absolutely think labelling is a great way to go as an interim step. Bollocks, absolute bollocks and flim-flam. Tell this to the poor unstunned hung-up throat-cut chicken flapping his life away in a line of his brethren. Halal is unstunned, live, bleeding meat, and that is the true fact of it. Discard the lies, the excuses, the so-called racial and religious divide and get real. Halal must be banned in the UK and banned now. It is an ancient and outdated law and should not be permitted in a civilised society." And finally, 2 for 1 day Friday. A stitch in time. A mother and son were flying to Brisbane from Melbourne on Virgin Australia. The son turned to his mother and asked, "If big dogs have baby dogs and big cats have baby cats, why don't big planes have baby planes?" The mother, who couldn't think of an answer, told her son to ask the flight attendant. So the boy asked the flight attendant, if big dogs have baby dogs and big cats have baby cats, how come big planes don't have baby planes? The flight attendant responded, "Did your mother ask you to tell me?" The boy admitted that that was the case. "Well then," said the flight attendant, "tell your mother that there are no baby planes because Virgin Australia always pulls out on time. Ask your mother to explain that one to you." And a completely un-PC joke to offend Pakistanis and white liberals alike. A Pakistani immigrant goes to a doctor and says, "I feel terrible." The doctor says you need to pee and crap in a bucket for a week, throw in a dead fish and a rotting cabbage. Put a towel over your head and inhale the vapours for 3 days. The man does this and goes back to the doctor and says, "I feel wonderful. What was wrong with me?" "You were homesick," said the GP. You've been listening to The World at 8. I'm Lynn Mozart, and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend. Friday. UK News. Blackburn pervert jailed for abducting girls and sexually assaulting one of them. A predatory man has been jailed for abducting 2 teenage girls and sexually assaulting one of them. There were dramatic scenes in court as the father of one of the victims stood up during the hearing and shouted, "He has destroyed my family." A judge heard how Zayed Mohammed, aged 44, planned to force himself on the 14-year-old after he and Imran Khan spotted the 2 youngsters walking late at night in Blackburn. After picking them up in his silver Honda, the girls were taken back to Mohammed's house in Chester Street, where Khan raped the other girl, who was 15. The pair asked how old the girls were and if they were virgins. Ken Hine, defending, admitted it was not the first time Mohammed had been involved in an abduction. He told the court that in 1983, when the defendant was 15, he was part of a gang that took a girl from a house she was staying in Blackburn before she was eventually taken on to Birmingham by others.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number 1 in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday 16th of May 2014. Blackburn pervert jailed for abducting girls and sexually assaulting one of them. Channel 4 documentary to look at polygamy among British Muslims. Ovary removal, Queen's Hospital doctor found guilty of misconduct but keeps job. Halal meat row, ministers will consider labelling if there is widespread demand and EU does same. Roma get payout over max discrimination. Sudan judge says pregnant Christian woman to hang for apostasy. Thought for the day, halal and the truth. And finally, 2 for one day. Mohammed was found guilty of 2 counts of detaining a child and a further 2 of sexual activity with a female child under 16. Sentencing Mohammed to 3.5 years in prison, the judge told him the circumstances of the victim's abduction and sexual assault represent sexual exploitation by older men. Imran Khan, 36 of Tenby Close, Blackburn, was also found guilty of 2 charges of detaining a child and 1 of rape. He will be sentenced on June the 20th to allow for the preparation of a medical report.